Hello beautiful people, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a February wrap up. I have a mix between physical books and ebooks that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, and let's go ahead and get started. So for the month of February, I wanted to focus on Black authors. This was not intended to be performative, it really was to knock out my TBR. I really enjoyed reading multiple genres by so many different amazing authors, and it really helped me with reducing my TBR. I first start with the excuse me, it's early in the morning. I'm first going to start with my ebooks. The last book that I finished in the month of February was The Unkindness of Ghost by River Solomon. I rated this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's about a girl who loses her mother and she's on a ship and she is trying to overcome some hurdles and make some drastic changes she really goes on this journey to solve a puzzle of her mom's death, and there's just a lot to it. So I rated this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. The next ebook that I read was Transcendent Kingdoms. This book was a lot. I did not give this a rating at all, simply because I didn't know how to rate it. It's a lot of abuse. It's a lot of drug abuse and issues with family issues and depression, and it's a young girl who overcomes a lot of trauma in her life. She's able to go to college, and basically all of the things that she went through, she's still pushing forward. And eventually I was just like, I can't read anymore. So yeah, that I didn't rate that, but that was an ebook that I did get. The next book I have is Renee Watson and What Mama Left Me. This is about a young girl, Serenity, who she has a brother as well, and her mother dies. And it really talks about, again, young girl trying to overcome grief and death, and she ends up living with her grandparents. And I really enjoyed this. This was a good book. I actually read it with my daughter, and so that was a good book. I enjoyed it. The next I have is Conjur Woman. The main POV is Rue. Is it Rue? Rue. And there's multiple timelines in this, and this is about hoodoo. Rue grows up with her mother working and using hoodoo in her life, and she eventually, I'm trying to give brief synopsis because I don't want to go into the big details. I have a lot of books here. And so Rue eventually is doing hoodoo and has a baby, and then something happens with that. But it really is the community using her for her hoodoo, but then scared of hoodoo. And there's a lot of growth in this book when it comes to Rue, so I loved it. I did give this 3 stars. The next I have is Fifth Season. I rated this 4 stars. This was a good book. I am definitely going to reread it. I did not annotate it at all, and I kind of just read it with the intent of just enjoying the book. But I missed a lot, and I feel like N.K. Jemisin is one of those authors who, she provides you things, there's some things that she will tell you need to remember, but she'll provide you information, and if you miss it, you miss it. And so she's not going to connect the dots for you. She gives it to you, and then it's your job to connect the dots. And so I'm going to reread this. I gave it 4 stars, but I'm going to reread it. It's still Inheritance Trilogy's flat out is still my favorite series of hers. So, yeah, that is 5th season, and I really enjoyed this. And if you know, you know what that's about. The next I have is Black Kids. This is by Christina Hemmings Reeds. I did not read this book. To me, it really was about a girl, Ashley Bennett, and she's a senior, and for me, the premise of the book was she's Black. She grows up, she grows up in a more privileged life. She allowed people to bully her and say just awful words to her, and she just shook it off. When it came to her Blackness, it was just like, and when it came to being Black and the struggles that some people have, it does mention Rodney King, and there's riots that happen in LA because of Rodney King. And to me, if you would, she knows she's Black, but she doesn't know the struggle, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And because of that, she does the best she can, I guess. But I didn't like it. The next book I have is The Conjur Woman. This is by Kaysen Callender. I did not rate this book as well. It really, eventually, I DNF'd this book, and I was probably like 85% of the way in when I DNF'd the book. I just could not deal with the issue of color skin and slaves, and then killing the slaves. And eventually I was just like, yeah, I'm done. It wasn't, I mean, the fantasy and the world building was great. The main POV, she survives something drastic, and she is trying to be regent, but the king has already told her, like, you do not qualify, like, you're not going to be regent. And so it's really about her on her quest of trying to gain more power, and then she marries into power, but that did not help her. The king was very clear, like, you're not going to get it. And so eventually, like, something happened. She keeps mentioning the shade of her skin, and then it turns around 2 pages later and kills a slave. And I'm like, yep, I'm done. I'm done. Okay, the next I want to talk about is Dear Martin by Nick Stone. This is a book that I read in like one sitting, and I know that some people did not like this book, but I enjoyed it. Let me see, what did I give it? I gave it 4 stars. From a YA perspective, I think Dear Martin was a great story. Me, I relate to this book so much. For this guy, Justice, he is a great student. He achieves, but then he has all of these issues in school. Then he also has issues with the police, but he overcomes a lot. And his life was almost turned upside down. I relate to this book a lot. I've had basically the same situations happen to me. He really takes this approach of writing to what and asking himself, like, what would Martin Luther King do? And he uses that approach to help him through and journal through the issues that are going on in his life. And so I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. Next is This Is My America by Kim Johnson. I love this book. I love this book. I gave it 4 stars, again, from a YA perspective. Tracy's father is on death row for a murder that he did not commit. In the process of trying to get him legal representation that will help him, because she believes he is innocent. You know, he's on a limited timeline, and she really is just trying to get him legal help. So she just, for years, spends time reaching out to a certain company, and then something happens with her brother. He was a successful athlete at their school, on his way to college, and then something happens. And so now she has to prove her brother is innocent, as well as her dad. And she is literally becoming a detective, in the meanwhile, while she's doing that, she's also an editor at her school for a paper. And she goes through ups and downs, but at the end of the day, she is really just trying to save her family. And I love this because it showed how motivated she was and still able to keep on top of her work, her extracurricular activities, and really just evolve into the person that she wants to be. And the fact that she was able to just, be the strength of the family, because everyone was trying to move on with their life, and she was like, no, I'm going to prove his innocence. I'm going to uncover all of these things that the police officers did not. And whole plot twist happens, and I'm like, what? I was not expecting that. But I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. 4.5 stars? 4 stars. So, I love that. So, the next book I read was All American Boys. This is by Jason Reynolds, and Breeden Kingsley. This I gave 5 stars to. Flat out. It is about a kid who is hurt and is beaten by the police. And literally his school advocates and protests against the violence. But this has multiple POVs between Rashad and Quinn. So one POV is Rashad, which is a kid that was hurt. Quinn is the person that saw it, but he is family members of the police officer that hurt him. And so he battles this journey of he battles this issue of, do I stay quiet or do I stand up for justice? And do I advocate and put the truth out there? Because, that is a betrayal for his family. And he really it's really a dialogue of back and forth POVs of Rashad, who was injured, and then Quinn, Rashad's in the hospital, and Quinn's dealing with the issues of his family, of right and wrong. And then the school knows that he's a part of the family, and so I loved this book, and I will definitely be rereading this book. I highly recommend it. It really reminded me of how our youth now are able to just advocate for themselves, and it's not about what our family wants, but right and wrong. But our youth today have taken such a in the last 10 years have taken such a stance on advocacy work that, it was just basically put into a book. And I love this book. 5 stars. 5 stars. The next book I want to talk about is The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. And this is by Honoré Fanon Jeffers. Honoré Fanon Jeffers. And this is a chunky book. It is definitely over 800 pages. And I loved it. There was a point in time where I wasn't making the connections, and it was just put all, it's 797 pages, my apologies. But there was a point in time where I was not following along until I realized it was one family. But it follows the journey between ancestors and then more of a modern day time, and you can see the language dialect that was different between people in the early 1800s and then until now, more of a modern time. And it has multiple POVs of that family, including the siblings, including the mother, and then their mother, and their mother, and their mother. And this story still sticks with me. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I changed that to 4 stars because this story still sticks with me, and I am still in love with the story. There is a lot of trigger warnings, of course, when you're talking about history, but I loved it. I loved everything about it. I love this, and I think that I will definitely probably try to reread this with the understanding of what I know now, so I am able to just grasp a lot more information and enjoy the journey. But I loved it. I love the multiple POVs with one family. It was amazing. Amazing. I have 3 more books here that I want to talk about as well. And the next is As the Wicked Watch. This is by Tamron Hall. This is about a reporter who is investigating a story that to her just does not make sense. And there is a person, a suspect, but the math ain't mathin', basically. And she is trying to uncover the truth. She is from Texas, and she moved to Chicago, and eventually this book became dry. So I was enjoying it first. I was enjoying her detective work, and then eventually I was just like, look, what you doing? What you doing? At this point, now you just like, you all over the place. And then there's a time where children get accused of a crime, and then she starts investigating that. And I was just like, okay, what is going on here? I guess that was supposed to be a plot twist, but to me, I was just like, yo, the math ain't mathin'. And part of it is like her dealing with, okay, I got to do this for work. And then part of it is like, okay, but right is right, wrong is wrong. And I gave it 2.5, 3 stars. I was loving it. But then it was like repetitive. It became repetitive. And then it became dry. And I was just like, okay, you're losing me. You're losing me in this story. And I just wish I loved it as much, more than what I actually did. Next, we have The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris. This book has a lot to it. I think that it's tied around the Civil War. The writing is beyond beautiful, but the POVs that we're following is Caucasian descent. They're Caucasian. Did I love that? No. Anyways, on to our last and final book. This is The Gilded One by Namina Forna. I hope I did not butcher that, but I'm sure I did. There's a blood ceremony, and I know it's starting off not good, right? But starting off a little crazy. There's a blood ceremony and a ritual that she has to do, but the ritual will tell her if she's different or not. Decca knows that she's different because during the ritual, her blood runs gold and not what it's supposed to, red. And once she does that, there's these creatures. So there's these creatures that come out and, they're there. And then someone comes, they save her, they take her to this little camp thing. And basically, she is learning how to kill these creatures. It is drilled into her mind that these creatures need to die. Well, then come to find out she can control the creatures. And that helps her kill more creatures. And so, they're not called creatures. They're called something else. But she can control them. And then eventually she realizes what they are. And then the story goes from there. This is a 5-star read. Do I hear people talking about this book? No. Do I wish they talked about this book? Absolutely. This book was amazing. From a YA perspective, I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. I, 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 I love this book. It really was about how the family betrayed her, overcoming the fact that she's different, and then she learns like how powerful she really is, and uses that power to be able to help her with what she's doing, which is killing creatures. But then she uncovers she's even more powerful than that, and she can die multiple times and be reborn. She is really overcoming betrayal from family, being killed so many times. I think the girl was killed like 50 times in this book, and I'm like, oh my god. It's just not her final way of dying, and then overcoming issues with friends, and wanting to do right, but also it's drilled into her brain that they are wrong. She needs to kill them. And I just like, there's just so much complexity to this book where I'm just like, if it wasn't a fantasy world, like, this book would be like my life. That's how I feel. This book would be my life in how complex it is. And I love this book. This is a 5-star read. I went in it with a YA perspective, and I literally finished this in a day and a half. It's such an easy read. It is such an easy read, and it's just amazing. I love this book. I highly recommend it. The second book comes out this year, and best believe I'm getting it for sure. So that is all of my books for the month of February. I hope you like this wrap-up video. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.